guys, welcome back to another episode of the Whiskey Diaries. My name is Martin Lang. We're here at the BenRiach Distillery live from Scotland. This is part of our tour series in which we're going around Scotland, just visiting different distilleries and just basically showing you around what the distillery is all about and what they do. Today we got a tour that is called the Rare and Old. It's part of the whiskey tours that they do. Georgina looked after us today. She's been working at the distillery for 6 months, but she has been working in distilleries most of her life. So she was a world of knowledge. And actually, as most of the tours that we're going to be doing here and the videos that we're going to be doing, I have to actually go and check my notes. There's very specific details about these distilleries and stories that are only told in the tours itself, which is also very awesome to hear actually, because there's a lot of information out there in the internet that you actually that is just very washed up. The stories that we get told in these tours are actually really cool and good to hear. Anyway, one of the main ones, as a matter of fact, is I did not know that this distillery was actually only it was a part of Longmorn for a long time until 1994 when BenRiach actually released the first bottling. Till then, this basically was a part of Chivas Regal, and it was mainly making blended whiskey. As a matter of fact, when I'm sitting right now, this we used to be called the Whiskey Highway. Basically, it's a little road that gets connected all the way to Longmorn, and basically those two distilleries that's how you carry all the barley, all the spirits, all the barrels. The reason why I'm sitting in barrels in the plain open as well is because the distillery is actually quite small and they don't have the space to put all the barrels away in a safe place, so they basically have them here all running around. Now, a little bit of history. As I said in previous videos, we don't really gonna go through a lot of history because most of the official history you can find on previous videos that we've done, or you can find them online. So basically we're going to try and focus as much as we can on the distillery itself and the facts. One of the interesting facts again is the distillery opened in 1898 and then it closed in the early 1900s. It was basically open for about 10 years and then it closed down and it was only reopened in 1965. So it was basically 65 years of basically doing nothing. Now in the early 2000s, Billy Walker bought the distillery in 2004 from the Chivas brothers. Then in 2008 he bought Glenlivet, and in 2013 he bought Glengasol. Those three distilleries now are owned by Brown-Forman. That they bought them. Brown-Forman bought it out of Billy in 2016. One of the other interesting facts is on the way to walk into the distillery is you'll see a massive warehouse that says BenRiach on the wall. You cannot miss it. Now that warehouse was actually, before that, it used to be called Queen Anne, because in the early 70s BenRiach, or Longmorn at the time, was actually producing whiskies for a blend that used to be called Queen Anne, which I found really interesting because apparently all the local people, Georgina was telling us, her father, for instance, called that building Queen Anne building because everybody knows it at Queen Anne. So it's actually really nice little folklore stories that you get told of the distilleries that is always good to know. Now, basically, we'll go into a little bit of a specification of how the whiskey is made. It's very similar to Glenlivet. The water that comes from a water source, basically up the hill, that is underground. This water is very different to the rest of the water in, for instance, like Duff Down and Speyside. It's actually really hard water, lots of minerals, and it's low in acidity. They believe that this actually makes a really good wort and a very aggressive fermentation for that matter, but they really like it and that's why they use it. Now they have one mash tun. They do 19 mashes a day. There we go. And it's a stainless steel mash tun of 6 tons. Basically, and the interesting part that they do here is that instead of doing 3 waters like most of the distilleries, they do 4 waters. For them, is basically they feel that that's the way that they're going to take the most amount of sugar possible out of the whole, out of the full mash. They basically There's only 2 other distilleries that Georgina knows about that they do this, and that's Glengrant and Stratheisler. And basically what they do is a 65% first wash, then a 76, 84 and 93 degrees. The other 2 sparges basically gets fed up to a reservoir tank, and then they use it again on the first, just to the next batch. Basically, like Glenronach as well, they do a rake and plough style of basically raking inside the mash tun. There's only about 5 or 6 distilleries that use that, and obviously Glenronach being one of them, and Glenglassaugh as well. The grist is composed by 10% of flour, 70% of the grist, and then 20% of the husk. As I said in previous videos, this is a way of just keeping the flow of the water the most efficiently way possible without anything getting stuck at the bottom, and being able to extract as much sugar as possible. Again, the extraction of the sugar is extremely important. The more sugar you can get, the more alcohol you can get, and basically the more efficient the distillery is going to run. After that, we got taken over to the washbacks. They have eight washbacks. It's pretty straightforward, all stainless steel, and each washback is about 40,000 litres. Fermentation comes at a normal 7.5 to 8% ABV. Very similar to Glenronach. And then after that, they took us to the stills. The stills are actually quite big. They have 2 wash stills and 2 spirit stills. Now this is the interesting part. So they do peated whiskey here, and they only started doing peated whiskey in the 1975s, in the 1970s. The reason for this is because at that time, in the 70s, 60s and 70s, the industry around Speyside and the Highlands, they started found a more efficient way of drying the barley without having to use peat. Also, around that, a few years later, that peat actually is a protected substance. So you can't just go and dig peat around. You actually have to be from protected peat bogs. That's another story. But regardless of that, in the 1975s, because of that, the distillery at the time believed that there was going to be a shortage of peated whiskey. So they started producing undistilled peated whiskey, hence why BenRiach has in their core range a lot of peated whiskey. They wanted to stay with that idea. Now, going back to the stills, initially they used to have 5 stills. They removed 1, and that's because back in the day they used to do triple distillation. Triple distillation was kind of like an experimentation, and only actually runs about a week a year. So they only do about 38,000 litres out of 1.2 million litres produced a year of peated whiskey, and that goes triple distillation whiskey, and that goes to experimental casks and specialty bottles and duty free outside of Scotland. So most of the BenRiach range, actually 99% of the BenRiach range, is actually double distillation, which is interesting because I was under the impression that a lot of the BenRiach range was actually triple distilled. So that's just to clarify that. So the 2 wash stills are 20,000 litres, and the 2 spirit stills are 12,000 litres. It's actually, to be precise, it's 12,729 litres and 20,912 litres. It's very interesting because I have it written down next to the still. The ABV after that, basically all of that is pretty straightforward. 66 to 68% ABV of the new make spirit that goes into the barrel. The first distillation, which is the low wines, comes at 23%. The main distillation goes at 72%, and then finally the third distillation comes at 80% ABV. Basically, they told us as well very precisely, and thank you, Georgina, for this information. The 4 shots takes 13 minutes, the hearts of the distillation takes 1.5 hours, and the feints takes 2 hours. So the whole process of distilling one batch takes about 3 hours and 43 minutes, which is really interesting for just good information to note. Then after that, they took us basically just, you can walk around all the distillery. Really nice distillery, old world, very old buildings, absolutely stunning. And then you go, they took us to warehouse number 13, which has what Georgina was saying, that there's a lot of superstitions around Scotland, and warehouse number 13 is believed around Speyside and Dufftown that is the luckiest and the best distillery, the best warehouse to age whiskey, obviously because of the number 13. They showed us around all the different barrels that they got currently. Because of a change, once Brown-Forman took the distillery, bought the distillery from Billy Walker, they try to stay away a little bit more from the experimentation and streamline a little bit. If you know BenRiach, you know that they do a lot of experiment. They used to do a lot of experimentations. They have hundreds of different barrels, but at the moment they're trying to focus a lot more on American oak and the peated version. But they still have about 34 different types of casks aging at any given time, including some from Japan, sherry, marsala, the port casks, peated rum. Anyway, there's heaps and heaps and stuff on that, and it's really, really interesting. I'm really, really looking forward to see the next releases, and the single casks that they do are actually incredible. After we went through the warehouse, we didn't get any luck in tasting any of the barrels. That is not part of the tour. So in this particular case, they take you out of the warehouse back to the visitors center to do the whiskey tasting. In this particular case, we got a little bit spoiled because of our relationship with Brown-Forman, but we got to try, initially with the Old and Rare, you get to try four whiskies. Those 4 whiskies are usually over the age of 21 years old, and they showcase special distillery whiskies and special editions that they do over here. In this particular case, we tried the 21-year-old, the 4 casks that was done before Brown-Forman took over, so up to the time of Billy Walker. The 4 casks are bourbon, virgin cask, sherry and red wine. This one is a 46% ABV, and it wasn't one of my favorites. Again, BenRiach is it's a beautiful whiskey when they nail it, but they can have a little bit of like touch and go kind of whiskies that are not for my personal taste and not my favorites, but still delicious whiskey. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not, it wasn't my favorite. The 99.3 cask, that is the one that we're gonna not the one that we're gonna taste, but this one is a distillery exclusive. You can buy only at the distillery. It was absolutely delicious. This was a Madeira cask that it was 23 years old, 52.3%, and it was stunning. Gingerbread, really spicy, but it's sweet and mellow at the back. It was delicious. The one that we're going to be trying today, that we tried over there and we decided to buy it, is the 99.4 cask edition. This is showcasing the new labeling that BenRiach is doing, that launched in the last year or so, and just it's a lot more clear. I want to speak about the label because BenRiach had to basically rebrand themselves with the labels, because the labels back in the day were like a little bit confusing. They used Latin names, you didn't know which one was what. And now they're trying to streamline it again, and they're basically doing a really clear, straightforward, really modern, nice label that is actually based on the first bottling that they did in 1994, the 10-year-old that the first BenRiach got released. Stunning bottle as well, considering that this was the 90s, and we all know that a lot of horrible things happened in the 90s, design-wise. So the bottle is actually really smick and great labeling. So the new label is for BenRiach, based on that. We're going to try that in a second. Then we had the 25-year-old, that is the new 25-year-old, replacing the old 21, that is 4 casks, bourbon, virgin, Madeira and cherry cask, 46% ABV. That was delicious as well. Now the core range for BenRiach, I feel like I need to say this just for everybody out there. So they got the original 10, that is basically based on that bottle and that whiskey from 1994. Then you've got a smoky 10, then you get a base 12-year-old, then you've got a smoky 12-year-old. Again, the smokiness comes for just basically referring to that 1975 when they decided just to keep making peated whiskey. So they want to keep that in the core range. Then they have a smoky season that is 52.8% and is fully old smoky whiskey. It's delicious as well. We try it there. Then you got the 21, the 25 and the 30. So that is basically the distillery. As you can see in some of the videos, we are in the middle of, we're surrounded by farms. There's a pig farm next to us. You can see all the pigs running around, and then next to us is just basically they're making whiskey. All the leftovers from the distillery actually doesn't get given to the farms for cattle farm or pig feed. It's just basically they use it just to give back to the energy source that gets transformed into methane, like most of the distilleries. At the moment in Scotland, there's a lot of, like everybody in the world, you have to look after your carbon footprint. So all the distilleries are trying to do as much as they can to give back energy to the grid and transforming everything that they use into energy sources, which I find spectacular. We want to be able to enjoy whiskies for the next 20 years or more. So this one is, as I said, the cask edition. This is a vintage 1994. It's a 27-year-old whiskey, bottled in 2021, cask number 2059, distilled in 18th of July of 1994. Great packaging, really clear. All you need to know is in the label here. Then when you open it, there we go. If I can open it, there we go. It's just this is a really crystal clear label. Looks great in a back bar. Look great in your bar. Reminds me a little bit of like those tasting flasks that the distilleries get, in which you get a really crystal clear label with the name of the distillery, what it does, what it is. This is a Oloroso sherry puncheon, which usually is about 550 to 600 liters. And yeah, we're just gonna try it now. This goes at the distillery. We bought it for £531, which is quite expensive in a special whiskey. But as I said in previous videos, we went in Rome, do as the Romans do, and we just decided to splurge a little bit on whiskies. This is absolutely delicious. One of my favorite whiskies that we tried so far. The ABV on this one is 53% ABV, so it's a little bit higher of my favorite. So I always like kind of like tasting whiskies at 46-48% ABV because it really showcase the whiskey. This is a little bit over that, but still you can smell all the spiciness. You get dry fruits, you get a little bit of honey as well for some reason. Ooh, yeah, it does need a little bit of water in my personal opinion. It's quite strong, but it's still not as strong as you would think. You can easily enjoy this without water. You get all the spicy notes, as I said, that you get from the nose, but you can add some dark chocolate to that as well, and I'm assuming that will have to be due to the Oloroso sherry influences. So anyway, guys, as you can see, absolutely beautiful distillery. It just has a lot of history. All the stuff are really helpful. We got really looked after us. If you're in Scotland, you should definitely come and visit this distillery. It's only about 25-minute drive from Dufftown, so it's not a big drive. And yeah, it's really worth visiting. Anyway, I'm gonna keep enjoying my whiskey here. We'll see you next time, guys, and thank you for listening. If you have any recommendations or any things that you actually want us to review, please do let us know in the comments. And then, yeah, we'll see you next time. Slàinte mhath.